Hi there, my name's Peter Eastway and I'd like to show you how I used Capture One to turn this into this. As you might be familiar, this is Yosemite National Park and Yosemite Falls. It's a very popular tourist destination and one that I'd like to photograph under moonlight, but of course I was there a little bit late and it was a little bit too cold, so I didn't get out at moonlight. Instead, I thought I would use Capture One to see how I could turn this into a moonlit serenade. So let's talk our way through it. I'm going to start over here with my ICC profile and set that to daylight, and I'm looking at my white balance, and down here we've got a couple of presets. Tungsten is going to give me a little bit of a bluish look, and so if I just click on that, half of the work is done for me, and that's given me that moonlit look, I guess, to some extent. I can exacerbate the situation. I can increase it by just taking the Kelvin down a little bit more, just to give a little bit more blue. Now, it's up to me, but part of the moonlit effect is the colour, and part of it is also the exposure. It probably wouldn't be so well lit on a moonlit night. So let's come up over to our exposure. We'll just grab the exposure slider and we'll just move him down a little bit and just darken the image. And maybe we need to just add a little bit of contrast just to give it that nice little bit of a look. Maybe down a bit further, up a little bit further. As long as you've got a good quality monitor and you can see the adjustments in real time, it's relatively straightforward. Before I go too far in the editing, I'd like to crop the image just a bit. To me, there's just a little bit too much sky sitting up there, so we might just try and bring that down a little bit. And just looking down here at the bottom, it gets a little bit busy with a few of the shadow lines, etc. So I might just bring that up just to simplify the image. Come back over to my exposure, just adjust a little bit more, get that moonlit effect. And I'm finding that the trees down here and some of these shadows are blocking up a little bit. So I'm going to go over to my local adjustments. I'm going to add in a new one. I'll just call that trees, and I'll change to my draw mask brush, and I'm just going to paint in the areas that concern me. There's a little bit down here and a little bit over here, etc. Just lighten that up a little bit, and then I just grab my exposure and I'll just lighten them up a bit. You see that I'm just doing it, it's just a hint, just makes a little bit of a difference, maybe a fraction more contrast, take a little bit of colour out just in case it's gone a bit blue, just lighten that up a little bit, just a subtle difference. Next, we'll just perhaps darken down that sky a little bit. I want the eye to go to the middle of the frame here, and you sort of get an exit strategy up there on the top. So let's add in another local adjustment. I'm going to call that one sky, and we'll use the gradient mask brush. I'll grab that, drag and drop, and then just grabbing the exposure again, I'll just darken that down just a little bit. If it becomes a little bit noticeable elsewhere, I find that if I knock the contrast down, it doesn't seem to, well, it's not so visible. And I'm very much a firm believer in invisible Capture One editing. Finally, let's give this waterfall a little bit of a lift. We'll come back in, we'll add in yet another one, and we'll call that waterfall, and change it to a draw mask brush, and then I'll just brush in the area of the waterfall. I've gone a little bit too far, so I'll change that back to the eraser, and I'll just take that out. And obviously you do this in a few steps. Different people work with these brushes a little bit differently from everyone else, and there's no right or wrong way as long as you get it looking correct in the end. And I just come back to my exposure. I'm just going to lighten that up. Obviously if I go too far, it looks a little bit too strong, so just add that around about there. Now, looking at the top of the waterfall, maybe that's a little bit too strong, so I'll just sort of remove that a little bit there. Just take that out. And I'd like to get this little bottom area a little bit lighter again. So let's add in a second one. We'll call that waterfall 2. And I'll just change my brush, and I'll just brush in here a little bit. And increase the exposure fractionally, and then maybe just drop off the contrast a little bit, which just slides it out a little bit more, and just got a little bit of a hot spot in there, so I might just come in and just try and get rid of that a little bit, and yeah, well, you get the idea. So Yosemite National Park, a great place to visit. Cheers.